My name is Laila. This is the story of how I met someone who brought unexpected meaning into my life, even though the timing was never right. It began during the early fall in Cambridge, Massachusetts, when the air smelled of dry leaves and coffee. I was working at the university library, a place filled with silence and stories. I loved organizing books and helping students discover new ideas. It was simple, peaceful, and steady. That's when Daniel Hartman entered my world. He was introduced during a faculty event, a guest professor from another state, known for his work in classical literature. With salt and pepper hair, thoughtful eyes, and a voice that carried calm authority, he wasn't someone I expected to notice. But something about him, his quiet presence, stirred a curiosity in me I couldn't name. Over the following weeks, Daniel started visiting the library more often. At first, it was for research. Then, slowly, we began having conversations. We discussed books, poetry, nature, even favorite places to travel. He was easy to talk to, and I found myself smiling more whenever he walked in. One afternoon, he brought me a book, a rare collection of poems I had once mentioned. "I thought you might like this," he said. It was a small gesture, but it stayed with me. Days turned into weeks. We had lunch sometimes, always casual, always respectful. We never talked about personal things. But even in silence, there was a warmth, an unspoken bond forming between us. Then, one rainy afternoon, I saw it. As he reached for a book on the top shelf, his sleeve rolled back slightly, revealing a simple silver band on his left hand. My heart paused. He was married. Suddenly, everything felt different. I smiled as usual, but inside there was a storm. That night, I sat by my window, thinking of every conversation we had. I asked myself if I had crossed a line emotionally, if kindness had turned into something deeper. I didn't have an answer. The next day, I decided to act like nothing changed. I greeted him with the same warmth, answered his questions, helped him find books. But my heart had already taken a different path. A few evenings later, we were sitting in the library courtyard. The sun was setting, casting a soft orange glow across the sky. Daniel was quiet. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "Sometimes, life surprises us with unexpected connections." I looked at him. There was no hidden meaning in his words, no promise, no hope, just truth. Before I could say anything, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. A name flashed on the screen. Clara. He stood up and smiled gently. "I'll see you tomorrow, Laila." As he walked away, I realized something. Sometimes, even the strongest emotions must remain unspoken. Days passed, and I tried to convince myself that nothing had changed. But deep down, everything had. The rhythm of our meetings, once effortless, now felt careful, like we were both tiptoeing around something unsaid. Daniel still came to the library. He still asked about books and shared thoughtful insights. But there was a softness in his gaze now, like he too had noticed the shift between us. One quiet afternoon, he handed me a thin paperback book. "I found this at a small shop downtown, thought you might enjoy it," he said. It was a poetry collection. Inside the front cover was a handwritten note. "Some feelings are best understood, not explained." I stared at the words, my heart beating just a little faster. I didn't look up right away. I couldn't. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at that note. I wasn't sure what Daniel meant, but it felt honest, kind, and maybe just a little brave. Over the next few weeks, our conversations became longer. We laughed more. He told me stories from his travels, his favorite books from childhood, his love for autumn walks. I never asked about Clara, and he never brought her up. It was like we had built a world where only the present moment mattered. Still, guilt would visit me in the quiet, not because of anything we did, because we never crossed any line, but because my emotions, which had started so innocently, now had roots. Then, one morning, Clara came to campus. I recognized her from a photo I had once seen online during a faculty spotlight article. She was elegant, confident, and polite. The kind of person who made you feel like you'd known her for years, even if you'd only just met. They walked into the library together. I smiled as I always did, and Daniel introduced us. Clara shook my hand warmly. "Daniel talks about this library all the time," she said. My stomach tightened. I simply nodded and showed her around. For the rest of the day, I felt like I was outside of my own life, watching everything through a window. That evening, I walked along the river, letting the cold air clear my thoughts. It was time. I had to set boundaries, not because I wanted to, but because it was the right thing to do. The next morning, I waited for Daniel in the reading room. When he arrived, I asked him to sit. "Daniel," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need some space. We've become close, and it's becoming hard for me." He didn't interrupt. He simply looked at me, listening carefully. "I never meant for this to happen," I continued. "But I've grown to care for you in a way that's not fair. To you, to your life, or to me." He nodded slowly. "Laila, I understand. You've been nothing but respectful and honest. I appreciate that more than you know." There was a long silence. Then he added, "Sometimes, life puts the right people in the wrong time." I smiled, even as my chest ached. "Maybe, but even the wrong time teaches us something important." We stood up. No dramatic goodbye, no promises, just a mutual understanding, spoken softly between two people who knew what couldn't be. As he walked away from the library that day, I felt something shift, a quiet strength rising within me. I had made the right choice, and yet, the part of my heart that belonged to Daniel stayed quietly with him. Winter came early that year. The trees lost their color, and the library windows often fogged with breath and frost. Life around me continued as usual, students studying, papers stacking up, the smell of hot chocolate from the campus cafe filling the air. But inside, something had changed. A stillness had taken over. Not emptiness, but reflection. Daniel stopped coming to the library. I assumed his time at the university was coming to an end, and part of me was thankful for the space. The other part missed him deeply. Weeks passed. I focused on my work, avoided looking for him in the crowd, and reminded myself that letting go wasn't just brave, it was necessary. Then, one snowy morning, a package arrived with my name written in elegant handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was a book, a first edition copy of a novel we had talked about many times. Its pages smelled like history. Tucked inside was a folded letter. "Dear Laila, some people walk into our lives to remind us of something we've forgotten. Stillness, sincerity, the beauty of honest connection. You reminded me of all that and more. You taught me that friendship can be deep even without words, that love doesn't always need to be claimed to be real, that sometimes what we don't say is as powerful as what we do. Thank you for being a quiet light in my life. I hope you keep sharing your calmness with the world. Be well. Always, Daniel." I read the letter twice, then again. Tears welled in my eyes, not because I was sad, but because I felt understood, truly and completely. Daniel had returned to his world, and I remained in mine. But the season of our connection had left something behind, a kind of emotional wisdom I hadn't known I needed. Years passed. I never saw Daniel again, but I carried the memory of him the way one carries a melody, softly inside. My life moved forward. I grew in my career, made new friends, traveled, laughed, and lived. But every now and then, I'd come across a book we once discussed, or walk past the old courtyard bench, and a quiet smile would find its way to my face. And whenever I saw a couple whispering between shelves in the library, I would pause and remember. Love doesn't always need an ending. Sometimes it's enough that it happened, that it was kind, that it was real, even if it was never truly ours to keep.